Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm Jason, your host, and as always, I'm here with my amazing co-host, Julia.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you today. We have a very exciting topic that I know many of you will find super helpful.
Absolutely, Julia. Today we are going to talk about something that almost every English learner struggles with, speaking without pausing.
Yes. You know, sometimes when we speak English, we pause too much. We stop, think, and try to find the right words. And these pauses, they can make speaking feel slow and stressful.
Exactly. And the good news is, this is completely normal. Everyone goes through it. And the way to fix it is not by learning more words, but by learning how to speak smoothly.
That's right. And in today's episode, we will share practical tips and exercises that will help you speak English more fluently and naturally without those long pauses.
So, if you're ready to improve your speaking and sound more confident in English, stay tuned. We're going to break it all down step by step.
And don't worry, we'll make it easy to follow, even if you're just starting to speak English. By the end of this podcast, you'll know how to keep speaking smoothly, even when English feels tricky.
Perfect. So let's get started and discover why we pause in the first place, and how we can stop it. All right, Julia, before we jump into tips, I think it's important to understand why we pause when speaking English.
Yes, Jason. I think many learners don't realize that pausing is normal, especially when you're learning a new language. But if it happens too much, it can make your English sound slow and unsure.
Exactly. One big reason is that people translate from their native language in their head. They think, how do I say this in English? And then pause.
Oh yes, I've done that so many times. And the more you translate, the longer the pause. It's like your brain is doing extra work before you speak.
Another reason is low confidence or fear of making mistakes. Some learners think, if I say it wrong, people will laugh, so they stop and pause too much.
That's so true. And sometimes learners just search for the right word. They know what they want to say, but the word doesn't come immediately, so they stop.
Also, thinking about perfect grammar can cause pauses. People try to form a perfect sentence in their head before speaking, and this slows them down.
Yes, and the more you pause, the more nervous you get, and then you pause even more. It can become a cycle.
But don't worry, Julia. The good news is that once we understand these reasons, we can work on practical ways to stop pausing and speak more fluently.
Exactly. And that's what we'll do in the next sections. We'll give you easy exercises and tips to help you speak English smoothly without stopping all the time.
So, Julia, now that we know why pausing happens, let's talk about something very important. The difference between fluent speech and thinking in your head.
Yes, many learners believe that if they know English perfectly in their head, they can speak perfectly, but that's not true.
Exactly. Speaking fluently is not just about knowing words or grammar in your brain. It's about training your brain and your mouth to work together at the same time.
Right. For example, you might know the sentence, I went to the market yesterday in your head, but when you try to say it, you pause, look for words, or get nervous.
That's because your brain is thinking first and your mouth is waiting. Fluent speakers, however, think and speak at the same time, so the words flow naturally.
Yes, and the good news is this is something you can practice and improve. You don't need to know every word perfectly. You just need to train your brain to speak without stopping.
Exactly, Julia. And in the next steps, we'll show you practical ways to train your brain and mouth together so you can speak English smoothly and confidently. All right, Julia. Now it's time for the first step to stop pausing. Training your mouth and brain together.
Yes, many learners think speaking is just about knowing English in their head, but that's not enough. Your mouth also needs practice to form words quickly.
Exactly. Think about it like learning to play an instrument. You might know the notes, but your fingers need to practice to play smoothly. It's the same with speaking English.
So, one simple exercise is tongue twisters. For example, try saying, "She sells seashells by the seashore slowly, then faster." It trains your mouth and helps you speak clearly.
Another exercise is reading out loud. Pick a short sentence or paragraph and speak it slowly at first, then a little faster each time. Don't worry about mistakes. Just focus on speaking smoothly.
And repeating phrases is also very helpful. For example, listen to a short sentence from a podcast or video, pause, and repeat it exactly. This trains your brain and mouth to work together.
Yes! The more you practice, the easier it becomes to say words naturally without stopping. And your pauses will become shorter and shorter.
Remember, it's practice, not perfection. Your goal is to train your mouth and brain, not to speak perfectly every time.
All right, Julia. Now that we've trained our mouth and brain, the next step is to use short sentences and fillers smartly.
Yes. Sometimes learners try to say very long sentences all at once, and that's when they pause a lot. Breaking sentences into smaller pieces helps you keep speaking smoothly.
Exactly. For example, instead of saying, "Yesterday I went to the market to buy some fruits, vegetables, and other things for my family in one go," you can say, "Yesterday I went to the market. I bought some fruits. I also bought vegetables."
Much easier. And another helpful trick is using small fillers when you need a moment to think. For example, words like, "well," "actually," or "I think." Let you pause naturally without stopping completely.
Yes, fillers are like little bridges. They keep the conversation flowing while your brain catches up. But remember, don't overuse them. They should be natural.
Right. And short sentences are not only easier to speak, but they also make your English clearer and easier to understand for others.
So, practice speaking in short sentences and use small fillers when needed. This way, your pauses will be shorter, and your English will sound smooth and confident. All right, Julia. Now we've practiced our mouth and brain and learned about short sentences. The next big step is to think in English, not translate.
Yes, this is a game changer. Many learners pause because they first think in their native language, then try to translate every word into English, and that takes time.
Exactly. For example, someone might think, "I want to eat breakfast in their own language first, then translate it word by word." By the time they speak, there's already a long pause.
Right, but if you train your brain to think in English directly, your speech becomes faster and more natural. You don't need to translate every word.
One way to practice this is to describe things around you in English. For example, look at your room and think, "The chair is near the window. There is a book on the table." Say it out loud without translating.
Another exercise is talking to yourself in English. You can narrate your day, like, I am making tea, I am reading a book. Doing this every day trains your brain to think in English naturally.
Yes, and don't worry about mistakes. The goal is not perfection. It's speed and fluency. The more you practice thinking in English, the shorter your pauses will be.
Exactly. And remember, thinking in English helps your mouth and brain work together even faster. Soon, speaking without pausing will feel natural.
All right, Julia. Now that we're thinking in English, the next step is to practice speaking in chunks.
Yes, speaking in chunks means saying groups of words together instead of one word at a time. This helps you speak more smoothly and reduces pauses.
Exactly. For example, instead of saying, I want to go to the park slowly, word by word, you can say it in chunks like, I want to go to the park.
Much better. Your speech flows naturally and your listener can understand you easily.
One way to practice is to listen to short sentences from podcasts or videos and repeat them in chunks. Don't try to say every word separately. Just repeat groups of words together.
Yes. Another exercise is to write a simple sentence, divide it into 2 or 3 chunks, and practice speaking it smoothly. For example, I am learning English every day to speak better.
Perfect. The more you practice speaking in chunks, the easier it becomes to keep talking without long pauses. Your English will sound much more natural and confident.
Remember, chunks are like building blocks. When you combine them, your sentences flow naturally, and your pauses almost disappear.
All right, Julia. Now we're at step 5, shadowing and listening practice. This is one of my favorite ways to speak without pausing.
Yes. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating exactly what they say, almost like their shadow. It helps your brain and mouth work together naturally.
Exactly. For example, you can listen to a short sentence from a podcast or video and immediately repeat it out loud. Try to match the speed, rhythm, and tone of the speaker.
It might feel a little tricky at first, but don't worry. The goal is not perfection. It's training your brain and mouth to speak together.
And listening is important too. The more you listen to how native speakers speak, the more you understand natural pauses, word patterns, and rhythm. Then, when you speak, your English sounds smooth.
Yes. A good tip is to shadow daily for 5 to 10 minutes. Pick a sentence or two, repeat them, and gradually increase the length as you get better.
Exactly. Shadowing is like a workout for your speaking muscles. The more you do it, the easier it becomes to speak English without long pauses, and your confidence grows.
And the best part is, it's fun. You can listen to songs, podcasts, or videos, anything you enjoy, and practice shadowing at the same time.
All right, Julia, we've shared a lot of tips so far. But before we finish, let's talk about some common mistakes that stop learners from speaking fluently.
Yes, many learners pause too much because of habits they don't even realize they have.
One big mistake is overthinking grammar. People try to make every sentence perfect, and while they think, they stop speaking.
Exactly. Another mistake is trying to remember too many words at once. Sometimes learners want to use big words, and when they forget them, they pause.
And don't forget speaking too slowly. Some learners think that slow speech is better, but speaking too slowly can actually make pauses longer and confidence lower.
Yes. Another common mistake is not practicing speaking enough. You can study English for years, but if you don't speak daily, your brain and mouth aren't trained to speak smoothly.
Finally, some learners fear making mistakes. They stop mid-sentence because they're afraid of saying something wrong. But mistakes are normal. They are part of learning.
Exactly. The key is to keep speaking even if you make mistakes. Over time, your fluency improves and your pauses become shorter.
Yes, avoiding these mistakes will help you speak English more naturally, confidently, and without unnecessary pauses. All right, Julia, we've covered a lot today. Let's quickly recap the main steps to speak English without pausing.
Sure. First, we talked about training your mouth and brain together. Then we learned to use short sentences and fillers smartly.
Next, we focused on thinking in English, not translating. And then we practiced speaking in chunks. Finally, we talked about shadowing and listening practice to improve fluency.
And we also discussed some common mistakes to avoid, like overthinking grammar, trying to remember too many words, speaking too slowly, and fearing mistakes.
Exactly. Now, the most important thing is to practice every day. Even a few minutes of speaking can make a huge difference.
Yes, don't worry about mistakes. Every time you speak, you're improving. Keep practicing, and soon speaking English without long pauses will feel natural.
So remember, fluency comes from practice, confidence, and smart techniques, not just studying words in a book.
And if you found today's tips helpful, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this podcast with friends who are learning English too.
Absolutely. And leave a comment below to tell us which tip you're going to practice first. We love hearing from you.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Keep practicing, stay confident, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you next time. Bye.